Welcome to Inquiry into Self. So, shadow work I also call deconditioning. Fundamentally, the idea is that there's something in our experience that doesn't quite seem to fit. So, we call it our shadow, it's simply our conditioning. It's something that doesn't seem to reflect our deeper knowing that we are the infinite, that our true being is unharmable, and that everything we need is here right now. These are really profound places of awareness, right? When we're settled into that knowing of what we are, we are settled into the fact that there's this interconnection, there's abundance, there's benevolence, there's one source, and this source is seen through all of us, interested in every experience. And in meditation, often we tap into this deeper recognition. It's there, it's what we are all the time. But sometimes we actually tap into it in a way that it floods our whole being, and all of us knows it with every cell. There's nothing wrong. Even in all the world, there is nothing wrong. This that we are is unfolding as a mysterious dance, moving naturally to richer and richer expression, moving naturally to a balance, moving naturally into exploration, moving naturally into the interplay of all of its different ways of being. But lots of times we're stuck because while that's the truth, our human experience includes a lot of expectations. And those expectations manifest as conditioning that is trying to make things look a certain way, trying to get our life to feel a certain way, or shadows, trying to push back that which just doesn't seem to fit, whether it doesn't seem to fit about us or doesn't seem to fit in the world. Now, all of that is simply our judging mind making assumptions about what should be. That's all it is. Every time that something just doesn't seem quite right, it's our judging mind evaluating into what should be, what shouldn't be. That's all it is. So we can tap back into this infinite being that we are, that's unharmable and delighted and curious about every experience. And as we sink into that, then that apparently not right thing just sort of drifts along on the surface, and we can notice everything about it. We can notice when we tense up. We can notice when we push away. We can notice what we think other people are thinking about it. We can notice where our energy diminishes and where our energy expands. We can just be very keen observers, holding the spaciousness of what we are as this event passes through our experience. And in the end, we may discover exactly what was interesting about it. Why did infinite awareness want to have this experience through us? We also may discover the different ways that we make it worse for ourselves. The way we visualize something different, hope for something different, imagine something different to be better. Or the way we add extra constriction, extra rehearsing in our minds, and actually make ourselves miserable. There's lots of ways that we may react with the event. And as we hold the spaciousness, we notice our reactions and notice the extra pain they cause. So there's the opportunity to tap into the spaciousness and let the event and the reactions just pass through. And as we notice all the ways that they play out and all the ways that we react with them, there's a simple kind of sizzling out. It's almost like a fire that just starts to turn into embers. Over and over doing that, we start to realize, oh my gosh, there's that same reaction. And we also notice that the same event can happen on a different day when everything feels so good in life and the reaction is so much less. And then we start to notice, and every time it ends up working out just fine. So our noticing can pull the steam out of the pressurized situations. There's also another opportunity, and that is to look more closely at what is the belief that's supporting our idea that it shouldn't be what it is. That's the examples that are flooded through this channel. And our shadow work is not to fix ourselves. Our shadow work is not to reinforce this idea, well, this is how I should be. How am I going to add more control into the situation to become what I should be, or to make my life what it should be? That would not be shadow work. That would be more control. And our first instinct when we think something shouldn't be is usually to go towards more control. Maybe we feel like we need to confront somebody. Or maybe we need to feel like we need to add a new practice into our life. Or maybe we feel like we need to cut off something we're doing or some relationship, just cut it off. All these things tend to be ways of control. And they actually add more fuel into the fire that thinks that something is wrong here. So, what's another way of playing with these events that we think shouldn't be? How can we bring welcoming and curiosity so that instead of experiencing the, oh, this shouldn't be feeling, we actually experience the wonder? Wow, what I am is interested in this experience. So if I can find any part of me interested in this experience, that is tapping more deeply into what I am. Now, of course, there's no need to do this. What we are is what we are at every second, regardless of what we do. You can't make yourself more of the infinite. The infinite is what we are all the time. But our human conditioning, our cloud of beliefs, our cloud of assumptions and judgments can block the full experience of that. So we can laugh at ourselves. We can notice how much we attach to what we want, what we think is good. And we can also look and see, well, what is the belief right now that's causing me all this pain? So, for example, I have a recurring belief that I'm not being supported well. So something happens and I look and see, and I was hoping so-and-so was going to show up for me. I was hoping that I wasn't going to be stuck alone on this situation again. And when that belief comes in, all of a sudden, the situation looks painful. So, it can be any number of things. My husband has to go away on a trip, and now I'm getting the car taken care of at the same time that I'm doing my work schedule and doing a few other things. Or, we're on a trip. I think I've gathered all my stuff. My husband goes in to do the final look around to make sure that everything got taken and something gets left. Any one of these times, there can come in that thought, this is not how it should be. And the fantasy can go into, oh, if only blankety blank, if only he had found the item when he went to look. If only he had taken care of the car before he went on his trip. If only. What a way of hurting myself. Dwelling on the if onlys. We can look into the world and do the same thing. There's been recent judgments by the government that people are quite unhappy about. If only our government were more sane. Right? And then we go into, look, this person and this person and this person are suffering needlessly because they reversed such and such in the government. If only, if only, if only. That's not to say that, there could be something constructive in us that's stepping up to make changes. For example, I could start saying, oh, I'm going to start doing a final check through when we're on a trip. Yeah, that's great. Or I'd like to increase awareness or increase support for the people who are going through all these challenges now that the government changed their decision on blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that creative energy, that's natural. There's no need to argue with that. Wonderful. We can go forward and do our next creative step and contribute. But we can do it all in a way of knowing that the process is good. The process of us going on our trip and something getting left behind was good. Certainly, it's good to know from now on to go ahead and do an extra check in our hotel room. Wow, that's really good to know. What we left cost, a few dollars. Could have been something more. Now with the extra check, probably something worth a lot of money won't get left behind. Wow, that's a great way to learn that. Or just feeling that I'm alone is actually a very interesting feeling. That is something the true being can't have, right? It's everything and everywhere. So to feel a lack of support when I'm everything everywhere, that's not a possible experience. But as a human, isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting to feel unsupported? What does that feel like? Now, when in the middle of feeling unsupported, that it feels interesting isn't usually what you can leap to. But actually, once you start to look, once I start to see, is there something interesting about being unsupported? I can feel, wow, like inside of me suddenly feels really hollow. And then I can notice, and the awareness that notices the unsupported is not unsupported. The unsupported is like a small experience, but the noticing is a vast experience. And I can feel this dance between the vast and the small, unsupported, wanting more help, and the vast noticing. What an amazing dance. And if something wants this experience, it has to be the vast noticing. So the vast noticing is actually the most real. And I can feel the dance between the vast noticing and the unsupported, and the vast noticing and the unsupported. And then I can actually look and see, is the unsupported actually true? Well, as it turns out, I was just fine without the items we left in the hotel room. And I certainly was just fine bringing the car in. In fact, it turned out there's extra strength and extra resourcefulness I didn't know I have. There's an extra wisdom. There's like this cushion of wisdom around me. And when a problem comes up, if I just still myself and listen to the wisdom, the next step shows up. Have you ever noticed that? If you quit the if only, it should be, if you quit that and just hold your question, the apparent problem, and tap into vast wisdom. Just tap into vast wisdom. Not usually not just for 30 seconds. We're talking tap into vast wisdom and hold that space of vast wisdom. And the next step often shows up. We wouldn't even be able to experience vast wisdom as vast wisdom without that problem. If we didn't have anything that looked like a problem, we'd just take next step, take the next step, take the next step, and we wouldn't even notice the wisdom of what we're doing. But when we see something that looks like a problem, and then we step back from it into the deep space and check into deep wisdom, the next step will show up. Isn't that amazing? To be able to experience deep wisdom. I think that's one of the most interesting experiences of life. When we're just doing what we know to do, we don't even notice that there is this deep wisdom guiding us. But when something looks like a problem, it puts an extra light on the situation. And then when the next step shows up, we can feel what wisdom feels like. We can feel what clarity is. It's just like courage. You never could notice courage if you were just doing the next thing. But if you have a moment of fear and then you discover the next thing to do, now it feels like courage. Every time there's a apparent problem, what it does is it throws a spotlight on whatever the next step is. And instead of just being, the next step in our dance, it becomes something where we taste that essence of what we are. We can taste the courage because we just had the fear. We can taste the wisdom because we just had the problem. We can taste the loving grace because we just had the thing that wanted to push away from somebody. We can taste all these amazing virtues because we had something that looked like a shadow. So ultimately, what we are is this vast awareness that has no argument with whatever is happening. We can notice our human reactivity, and the human reactivity is really just riding on the surface once we notice what we are. We can question those beliefs that are causing us so much pain. And when we see exactly what the belief is, sometimes that in itself just makes me laugh. My husband should always be here to take care of the car. Isn't that that sounds like a very spoiled person, right? And I always need somebody else to take care of me. It's hilarious. It's so hilarious that our mind can be attached in that sort of way. So I should never leave anything in a hotel room. I'm going to be the one person in all humanity who never leaves anything in a hotel room. I mean, no. What our mind creates this total fantasy, right? That it's all going to be in this, easy path. And then when we're in the easy path for too long, our life seems boring. Have you ever gotten to that point? It's just too easy. And now you want something interesting. You want to create a trip. You want to create a challenge. You want to create a project. You just want anything because it's just gotten so simple and easy. Oh, our human machinations. But then finally, once we see the silliness of our belief, we can actually just tap into the wonder of the experience itself. The wonder of a moment of fear and then the infinite that takes the next step and shows that there is courage. The moment of a problem and then the infinite that comes in and shows there is wisdom. I can manage my schedule so that I can take care of a car and do my work and my other projects. I can take care of making sure that I don't leave something in a hotel, at least most of the time. I can do the next little thing to remain in connection with the people that I love. All of this just ends up helping us tap into what we are that has infinite resources, this infinite time, infinite love, infinite grace, and the ability to sit and wait, the ability to retreat in silence when that is the most wise next step. That doesn't have to follow any prescription. And sometimes our prescriptions seem so obvious, but they are not the wisest next step. And as we sit in the infinite, another option shows up. So the shadow is not that we've become less. The shadow is not anything that we have to correct. The shadow is an opportunity for exploring what we are and noticing what we are in all of its depths. It turns out nothing is a shadow. Everything is part of this choreographed dance. And so as we discuss the shadow, we actually get to experience more deeply what we are. And this is going to be a discussion of just understanding how do we navigate and find the way that our whole being can recognize it. Because it's really nice to bring the human along the way. It's really nice to allow our conditioning to loosen. It's really nice to discover that our shadow is actually part of the design. It wasn't wrong that I got to take the car in. It wasn't wrong that anything got left in the hotel room. It wasn't wrong that I felt a pull away from this person that I loved. It is just part of this discovery that the infinite in me has way more resources than I even knew. And as I gently sink in, gently open, I get to have the experience of falling in love with whatever is happening. That's not necessary. What we are wants all the experiences. And the experience of hating what we're going through is completely included. But it turns out our human does have this thing that would like to feel the harmony. And when that part is arising, it wants to feel the harmony, then there's lots of options available and we can. The harmony is here all the time. So if you find this helpful or think it might help somebody else, please push like and subscribe.